Well, one of the most anticipated fights in recent UFC history is finally in the books. UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones successfully retains his title against Daniel Cormier, a 5-round fight. It was somewhat of a war, but towards the end, it looked like it was all Jon Jones, and the scorecards reflected that. We will break it all down here on the MMAfighting.com post-fight wrap-up show. That is Dave Doyle. That is Chuck Mindenhall. I am Ariel Helwani. We are in Las Vegas moments after the main event concluded. We'll start with you, Dave. Did that fight surprise you? How it all unfolded, did it surprise you?
It honestly, it didn't surprise me. Okay, let me back up. It surprised me that Jon Jones was able to out-wrestle Daniel Cormier. I don't know that anyone was really expecting Jon to double leg him, take him down. Yeah, Daniel got right back up, but he did it again, and he got him a third time before the end of the round, and that was pretty much the fight right there. So, yes, that surprised me.
Do you think that was demoralizing for Daniel? Early in the fight, couldn't take him down, got one towards the end, but it was pretty much over by that point.
Probably, because I know that, like he was saying, Jones was saying in the post-fight press conference, he put a lot of eggs in that basket. I think that Cormier really believed he was going to be able to dictate the wrestling in this fight. And I know a lot of people were saying that Jones might go out there and try to out-wrestle him, but a lot of people were saying that would be foolish, don't do that. And then he actually goes out there and executes it. It's just another notch of how great he really is. I don't know if he's fully appreciated on the level that he should be at this point. What was it, 8 title defenses now? And it's just beating guys at their own game. He did this to Chael Sonnen, which we expected. But in a fight like this, Daniel Cormier, after his momentum, everything he sort of brought into this fight, I just did not foresee that going to happen like that. So it's another kudos to him, man. And it's actually one of those fights where you see him handle somebody like Cormier like that, and you're like, you're not even sure Gustafsson is going to be a challenge at this point. You sort of start to scramble your brain, like, what happens now for this guy?
Yeah, he continues to fight fire with fire, and now he has moved full-time to Albuquerque and says that he'll be training full-time as well, so watch out to his next opponent. That's what he said in the post-fight press conference. We didn't talk to you before the fight, so I'm just curious, did you expect that kind of fight out of both men?
Not really. Well, in part, I thought that they would clinch a lot. I thought they would end up doing that because I thought Daniel Cormier would actually force that issue. I thought he'd try to get in. Everybody says the same game plan against Jones: get inside of his range, try to make it a little bit ugly inside, try to wrestle him, put him against the fence, things like that. Try to dictate the control. But they were both getting off in there. He was hitting him with the elbows. The body shots were just all over the place from both sides. The uppercuts he was landing, there was a couple of them on press row. You could just see Jones' head just whipping back. He was hitting him pretty good with those uppercuts. But, man, you remember back in the day when we were like, yeah, but Jones has never been hit. We've never seen him get hit yet. So what does he do when he gets hit? It just seems like so far along. He's taken big shots in a few of these last fights, and Gustafsson especially. And this one he was a little banged up, and he just rises to the occasion, man. I can't say enough great things about him. It has almost a somber feeling for some reason on some level, and it's hard to pinpoint if it was just the mood of the crowd or if it's just that you sort of see him ascending maybe without the recognition. I don't know what it is, but something a little weird. Do you guys agree there was like a little bit of a melancholy to it all?
Well, Daniel's mood, I think everyone kind of feels for him a little bit. He has been through so much, and he's worked so hard to get to this point. So let's talk about, kind of the post-fight comments, if you will. We are obsessed with talking about Jon Jones, the person, and his personality, but I feel compelled to bring this up because I felt post-fight that was the most real Jon Jones we've ever seen. I mean, he was unapologetic. He said he doesn't feel bad for Daniel Cormier. He gave him the suck it DX chop, for God's sake. I mean, what do you think of what he did afterwards?
This is this is what we've been saying for how long now. Jon Jones needs to be real. Jon Jones needs to be himself. Jon Jones needs to become the guy we all kind of knew he was deep down, and he's embracing it now, and I mean that maybe it's not going to win him fans, but I think it's going to earn him that sort of especially knowing how just absolutely monstrous the traffic on the websites and the pay-per-view buys were tonight. I think this is the fight that makes him the type of draw that it doesn't matter if they love him or hate him, people want to pay to see him now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would have been upset if they would have embraced and said, the beef had been squashed. I mean, look, kudos to Daniel Cormier. He said all the right things. He was classy in defeat, but John Jones was giving him nothing, right? I mean, and that's pretty fascinating in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, he did, when things had kind of cooled down by the press conference, he started to give DC at least
A little bit
of credit as an athlete. But no, this is, this is what we've been, what we've wanted to see from John Jones for a long time. Just be real. Maybe he will gain more fans now simply because he's being himself.
What do you think, Chuck? We have this big fight in Sweden coming up, Alexander Gustafsson versus Rumble Johnson. The first fight, UFC 165, Gus versus Jones. Tremendous fight. Do you want to see that again, or are you hoping for a fresh challenge for John Jones and Rumble Johnson?
There aren't many fresh challenges left, so I'd like to see him fight both those guys, because if he is really cleaning out the division, that's pretty much it. I mean, there aren't a lot of guys, outside of that, other than maybe Cormier making his way back again or something like that. But ultimately, I'd like to see the Gustafsson fight again, because it was close. It went back and forth. We saw how he looked after that fight. There was a lot of talk about maybe he was taken a little lightly. There was, if you guys recall, going into that fight, it was all about his Nike sponsorship. It was all about Gatorade. It was all this. We were talking about, hey, are you going to do a Gatorade bath? And I mean, things like this. It was just sort of presumed he was going to walk away with that fight, and he ended up in a dogfight. It's the first time we really saw him have to turn the narrative around during a fight, switch things around, and win a fight like that. So, yeah, I mean, you'd like to see that, because if it plays out for Gustafsson or if it plays out exactly like that, what a great fight. I mean, that was one of the better fights maybe the best fight of that year. So I would like to see again, and I know Gustafsson sort of having to get back to there, really wants that fight. So why not? I would like to see that one next if he gets by Johnson, obviously.
Can you say right now John Jones greatest of all time, or is it too early?
You know what? Coming into I think this was the fight that did it for me. I'm not.
That resume.
Look at this resume, and this Daniel Cormier. I really had that much belief in Daniel Cormier's ability. So for him to do what he did to Daniel Cormier, yeah, I would probably go there. You're right. When you look at a guy like Anderson Silva, there were a lot of sort of gimmies within that, but he did beat some really good guys as well and had to overcome some stuff. But I would say that Jones, if you really go down the whole resume, it's got to be him at this point.
Do you agree, Dave?
Not quite willing to go there yet. I think this is definitely the fight that it's a legitimate conversation now. He's certainly on the very short list, but I am kind of defaulting to Silva just because of the longevity factor. He was champion for 7 years. He pushed himself and went up to light heavyweight. Let's see a couple more title defenses and maybe going up to heavyweight, challenging himself there, and at that point I'd be able to sign off.
Hard sell, Dave. Your hard
No,
sell.
seriously. Truly heartbreaking.
Silva guy was pretty good.
He was. And he's coming back in just a few weeks. Truly heartbreaking stuff watching Daniel Cormier there. I mean, again, handled it with class, but you see a guy who's always been the bridesmaid, and he knows in the back of his mind he's not going to get a lot more opportunities. He's up there in age. He's got the Fox gig, so he kind of has that cushion. Do you foresee him having one more run, or do you think this might be it for him as far as title talk is concerned?
I think he has one run left in him, just because look at how resilient this guy is, and just everything he's gone through in both his personal life and his professional life. He's one of the mentally toughest people you have the privilege of meeting in this lifetime. And I just think it might seem bleak now, but so what if John Jones goes to heavyweight a year or two from now? Who else is there at light heavyweight? What if Cain Velasquez has to if his knee's so bad that he has to drop the championship? Maybe he goes back up to heavyweight. He's going to have to take some time to regroup, but don't write off Daniel Cormier just yet.
In my opinion, this card was all about John Jones and Daniel Cormier. It almost felt like the fans wanted the night to sort of fast forward to get to the main event, and they were just kind of, sitting on their hands, just waiting for that fight that we've all been anticipating for so long. So let's kind of leave this talk at that main event. But before we go, I just want to get another story that emerged tonight that you really feel is worth discussing. Of course, Donald Cerrone defeated Miles Jury. You had Hector Lombard defeating Josh Berkman. Both of them kind of disappointed in the fights. And some breakout performances, Garbrandt, Felder. Anything come to mind?
Honestly, I felt like all the guys who were in the spots to really showcase themselves did not handle themselves that well. But you mentioned Garbrandt, he sort of stood out to me because I felt like there was sort of a buzz, like undercurrent of watch out for this kid from Team Alpha Male. He actually looked pretty good, being able to take it to Brimage. And then in Felder as well, sort of as not a last-second replacement, but as a guy who came in and filled that spot and, has that kind of fight. But again, I was sort of like, why isn't Castillo using his wrestling? Why does he want to box with this guy? So there were some asterisks pointed on that too. But ultimately, I think it really was just about Jones and Cormier, because that whole time leading up, it just felt like everybody was in almost a state of agitation. It was like people were booing immediately and everything. It was just very
quick to boo.
very odd sort of atmosphere until that main event.
How about you, Dave?
As a big guy, I got to say I love seeing Sean Jordan do a backflip after knocking out his opponent. But I agree with Chuck. I mean, this really felt like if you've ever been to a major boxing event where the people just kind of file in and sit on their hands until, the main event comes around. It had that sort of feeling. I mean, I don't think Donald Cerrone looked that bad. His submission work on the bottom in the first round was awesome, and I think he was really hard on his own performance. But Habib actually called out Cerrone on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of interesting matchups can emerge. Also, Hector Lombard versus Rory McDonald could be next for Rory now that he's not getting a title shot. But it's all about Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier tonight. Jon Jones once again retains that title. And, this kicks off 2015 for the UFC. A very interesting month coming up. 4 events, 3 more to go. We got Boston, Conor McGregor versus Dennis Seaver next. It all concludes, of course, January 31st. Right back here at the MGM, Anderson Silva versus Nick Diaz. And this obviously kicks off what could be a very important and special year for the UFC. We'll see. Tonight, not bad of a start. We'll see what happens in the future. That's Chuck. That's Dave. I'm Ariel. Thank you so much for watching our coverage all week long from here in Las Vegas. And guess what? The MMA Hour is back on Monday. Our 2-week hiatus is over. We got a good show planned for you. Hope you'll join us. Thanks so much. We'll see you on Monday.